We were able to determine that she showed up to study at around 6 p.m. that night, and she's laughing away with her friends, having a great time.
Around 11:30, she is by herself. And she comes across Dylan and a group of his friends. By pure coincidence, we learn Dylan is the same person who was assaulted by her ex-boyfriend Gary 3 days earlier at the Tim Hortons. And she joined him and his friends just after 1 a.m.
It's just after midnight on September 28, 2011, at Simon Fraser University's Surrey campus. The library lights glow against the dark sky, casting long shadows across the parking lot. A young woman, just 19 years old, walks out after hours of studying. She's tired but hopeful, planning her future one late night at a time. But as she makes her way toward her car, something feels off. A camera mounted above begins to pan, turning away for only a few critical seconds. When it rotates back, the young woman is no longer alone. Witnesses hear a flurry of gunshots, followed by the screech of tires. A white Dodge Charger speeds off into the night. In those lost moments of surveillance, Maple Batalia's life was stolen. Maple was born on March 4, 1992, to Hakarat and Sarabjit Batalia. She grew up in Surrey, British Columbia, the youngest daughter in a loving Sikh family that had immigrated from Mumbai. Her parents had come to Canada seeking better opportunities for their children, and Maple carried those dreams on her shoulders with pride. To her family and friends, she was more than just beautiful. She was vibrant, ambitious, and determined to make a mark. At Simon Fraser University, Maple pursued a degree in health sciences with the goal of one day becoming a doctor. Professors and classmates remember her dedication, her seriousness about academics, and her willingness to help others. But Maple also had a creative side that shined brightly. She loved painting and performing. In 2011, she earned runner-up in Vancouver's Central City Model Search, a recognition that opened doors in modeling and acting. She appeared in short films and music videos, balancing her studies with auditions, photo shoots, and rehearsals. Her friends described her as someone who lit up every room, someone who never let the weight of expectations dull her joy. But behind the surface, Maple's life had taken a complicated turn. As a teenager, she began dating Gurjinder Gary Dhaliwal. At first, their relationship looked like many others, young love full of intensity and emotion. But soon, troubling signs emerged. Gary was controlling, jealous, and increasingly volatile. Friends recalled that Maple would receive obsessive phone calls and texts, especially when she was out with others. He seemed unable to let go of the relationship even after she ended it. The breakup in 2010 didn't bring peace. It marked the beginning of relentless harassment. One incident stood out in particular. At a Tim Hortons coffee shop, Dhaliwal confronted Maple and her friends, his temper flaring in public. She tried to ignore him, but his anger only escalated. Maple confided to friends and family that she was frightened. She sought help, even contacting police about the harassment, but like so many young women in similar situations, she found little protection. The red flags were there: obsession, stalking, intimidation, but the system failed to act decisively. Maple, just 19 years old, was forced to navigate her own fears while trying to keep her life on track. On the night of September 27, 2011, Maple was at the library, doing what she often did, studying late into the night to keep up with her demanding coursework. She sat with friends, going over notes, preparing for exams. The library closed, and just after 1 a.m. on September 28th, Maple gathered her things and walked out. The parking lot was quiet, dimly lit, and mostly empty. As she headed toward her vehicle, a camera high above captured her steps. But then, in a chilling twist of fate, the camera began to rotate, slowly turning away. In that critical moment, Maple's attacker appeared. Gunshots rang out, shattering the silence. Maple collapsed. Witnesses caught sight of a white Dodge Charger speeding away from the scene. Panic spread across the campus as emergency calls flooded in. First responders arrived quickly, rushing Maple to Royal Columbian Hospital. But despite their efforts, she could not be saved. At just 19 years old, Maple's life was cut short. For investigators, the case began with fragments: a grainy video, eyewitness accounts, and a white car fleeing into the night. But piece by piece, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police built their case. Surveillance footage helped them track the Dodge Charger, which was eventually traced back to a rental linked to one of Dhaliwal's associates. Forensic teams scoured the scene, recovering a shell casing and analyzing Maple's belongings. Gunshot residue tests added weight to suspicions. Telecommunications evidence became the nail in the coffin. Phone records and cell tower data placed Dhaliwal near the crime scene at the exact time of the shooting. Call logs and text messages revealed a pattern of harassment that supported Maple's earlier complaints. Investigators also discovered that Dhaliwal's friend, Gursamar Bedi, had helped him that night, providing support that enabled the crime and assisting in the aftermath. Step by step, the evidence created a clear picture of premeditation. Before we continue, let me pause for a moment. Stories like Maple's are difficult, but they matter. If you believe these stories should never be forgotten, take a moment right now, subscribe to this channel, comment below where you're watching from, and share this video with someone. Every time you share, you help shine a light on the red flags of stalking and intimate partner violence that too often get ignored. The road to justice was long and painful. Maple's family endured years of court hearings, delays, and appeals. Dhaliwal's defense team filed motions and sought extensions, prolonging the process and forcing the Batalia family to relive their grief again and again. It wasn't until 2016, 5 years after Maple's murder, that a resolution came. In the face of overwhelming evidence, Dhaliwal pled guilty to second-degree murder. The sentencing was definitive: life imprisonment, with no chance of parole for 21 years. For Maple's family, it was both a relief and a reminder of all they had lost. Her father, Hakirat, spoke of his pain, saying no sentence could ever bring Maple back. Her mother, Sarabjit, shared the heartbreak of losing a daughter with such promise. Dhaliwal's accomplice, Gursamar Bedi, was convicted of being an accessory after the fact. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail. The contrast in sentencing angered many in the community, but it underscored the central truth. Maple's killer had been brought to justice, even if justice came too late to save her. Maple's death left a hole in her community, but it also sparked a movement. Vigils were held every year to remember her life. Her friends and family created scholarships in her name, ensuring that Maple's passion for education would live on through others. Documentaries and podcasts later featured her story, keeping her memory alive and reminding Canadians of the dangers of intimate partner violence. But even in prison, controversy followed Dhaliwal. In 2019, reports surfaced that he had been granted escorted temporary leave from custody. The news outraged the community and Maple's family, who felt the justice system was once again minimizing the severity of his actions. The decision fueled renewed debate about how Canada handles violent offenders, particularly in cases of domestic violence and stalking. Maple's story is not just about one young woman's life cut short, it's about systemic failure. She did everything right. She studied hard, she nurtured her dreams, and when she felt unsafe, she sought help. But her warnings weren't enough. The tragedy of Maple Batalia is a cautionary tale about how obsession, jealousy, and stalking can escalate to lethal violence when red flags are ignored. And yet, Maple's legacy is also one of inspiration. Her art continues to hang in her family home. Her scholarships support aspiring students. Her memory is honored every year in Surrey, where people gather not only to mourn her loss, but to celebrate her light. Maple's story is a reminder that awareness saves lives. If you were moved by her story, please share this video. Share it with a friend, a colleague, anyone who needs to understand the importance of recognizing the warning signs of abuse. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue to say their names and tell their stories. And most importantly, if you or someone you know is experiencing stalking or abuse, please check the resources linked in the description. Every call for help, every conversation, every share makes it harder for the system to ignore these red flags. because the red flags we recognize today may save a life tomorrow. Maple Batalia was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, an artist, and a future healer. Though her life ended far too soon, her story continues to echo, urging us to listen, to act, and to never let another Maple slip through the cracks.